Everybody, hello, and welcome back to Higher Density Living. We just had a fantastic guest on the show.
Awesome.
Jim McCarty.
Highlight.
It was pretty, it's up there. It's like
Yes.
it's top tier stuff for us.
This is like...
do you see these beautiful 5 volumes? McCarty, right here, Jim McCarty. He is the scribe and was the scribe for the Law of One material. We had the chance to ask him a bunch of questions. And for him to teach us some stuff, define things, clarify.
Yes.
Which was duly needed.
Oh, so good.
And we thoroughly enjoyed it. And so
We're stoked.
We want to just do a couple follow-up episodes here, just with ourselves to just kind of digest what we had gone through.
Yeah, I think how we can start off, and maybe you could talk about this, is the beginning of them, how raw the universe, the infinite creator, put them together.
Yeah.
And how synchronicities happen, and how people like you and I, how people come together to affect, cause and effect.
There was throughout the course of their lives, through Don, Carla, and Jim, they all made choices. Now, there was an early confluence of those choices, which Don and Carla had made. Don being a physicist, Carla, an albeit religious woman, librarian, but interested to see what was going on for more answers. She was just curious. So she made choices to go and actually visit these channeling groups that Don was running for experimentation efforts. But that happened because Carla was originally with a man from Detroit who brought her down to meet and study what Don was actually doing. So through the circumstance of her choice to marry a man for a marriage that didn't work out, brought her down from the Detroit area down to Kentucky. And at the same time, Jim McCarty, who is living out in the boonies, like totally off-grid in a log cabin, happened to have a battery-powered radio. And through the early stages of work that had occurred between Don and Carla, they were brought on a local radio show. There happened to be one day, and the only time Jim turned his radio on was to listen to football games. But he turned it on one day to listen to WQQR, I think that's what it was, in Louisville, Kentucky, and heard an interview of the two of them. And at the time, Jim would shop at a co-op along with everybody else. And Jim's friends knew Don and Carla personally. So he's like, can you introduce me to these people? I'm just curious to meet them.
Yes, 100%.
Because Jim had his own questions.
Yes.
And so through a long line of cause, effect, action, interaction, and choice, drove the three of these people to come together. And it was extremely important. So the raw contact didn't occur until Jim actually showed up, because there was a requirement for the 3 people of a group to make that level of contact happen.
Yeah, and I also think whenever you brought, and he brought this up about negative things that happen in our life.
Yes.
And you look at Carla and her failed marriage, getting divorced in the 60s.
Yes.
You know how...
That's got to be brutal.
You got to think late 1960s, 69, I think he said, or 68. So to get a divorce... That's a huge hit. Your whole family is going to know. And
she did all the work for the church too.
Yeah.
She would always set up the altar and stuff for the mass. Like, consider what her social groups were like when that was actually occurring.
So like what you would consider to be the worst catalyst turned out to be her life work.
Her life work came from something that was in the beginning viewed as a negative occurrence, but was something so positive, so evolutive, that allowed them to scribe this information down, which we can share with everybody else and have these conversations with people like Jim.
Yeah, and I think he talked about it, which I thought was interesting, is that if you have positive, you're going to have negative.
It has to.
If you're, and he used it in a channeling sense, but we can use it in our own life. There's going to be negative, and that there's nothing wrong with it.
If I'm walking around, my feet are putting positive pressure on the ground. That has to be equalized, right? With a non-moving force, a negative, to net the force out and equalize it, allowing me to stand on solid surface. Your mind, your thoughts, your actions, all learning material your life requires the same things. It's a requirement of evolution for the equalization of the information. Creation is a perfect balance of positive and negative energy.
Yes.
It's the sine wave, right? It's a perfect balance of that. It gives it its fullness. That's what gives it the one, all right? And so when he describes this, when you have something negative, and this is fundamentally important, you need to look at that as a strong, strong learning catalyst. It is nothing more than catalyst for you to learn. And if you think of that moment and you think, I understand how I feel I absorb this information as the negative or this event, but what's the antithesis of that? What is the positive side of it? And the moment you do that, you equalize that energy and it allows you to evolve and move forward, which is fundamentally so important. That helps people within their own consciousness evolutive journeys, which we are all undertaking at this current time. And it's a very fundamental practice. And like he said, it doesn't happen overnight. It's something you have to do every single day, all day long, constantly. It's altering your frame of reference for how you actually live and view your perspective of the world. Remove the ego for a minute.
Yes.
And look at it purely as a learning catalyst, something totally creational for yourself.
Yeah, and when he got into the beginning of, because we kind of walked that narrative a little bit about, we didn't get into too big of a detail, but we kind of walked the narrative about when it started and when they came together, and then the processes of them learning how to refine.
Yeah, so the refinement or the alignment of the group was fundamentally important. This is a narrowband contact. So unless the actual alignment of the group and their questioning was totally on point, it could almost stray the energies. So for instance, you want to have mathematical precision, right? Mathematical precision can give you better answers in your research. So if you're doing this research of this channeling through a group, the group has to be precise in how they go about their line of questioning. The more precise you are with your question, the more precise you're going to have with your answer. There you get more perfunctory, you get more catalytic learning that can actually occur for that group. So for them, what they had to realize is that when they were asking questions, you had to toe into certain waters, but if you realize that that water truly wasn't beneficial to the line of questionings or teaching of the law one, you had to stray away from it.
Yes.
Otherwise, it would degrade the length of time which that contact would happen. And if Carla has a limited amount of energy, which she can have to actually do this trans-channeling, right, on her, feebleized body that didn't physically have the energy aptitude to continue to push these things for a longer state, that means they're wasting very, very precious moments that they have asking questions that truly aren't beneficial, that has truth that can continue for hundreds of thousands, millions, if not billions of years.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it makes 100% sense. And this is something that I think people need to understand that is extremely important. Whenever you're looking at this material, the material is all about free will.
Yeah.
And even the way that he prefaced it over and over and over again, he mentioned free will probably at least 5 or 6 times.
Yes.
Even in that contact, in that very beginning, when they were, like you mentioned it, and I had gotten that too when I read the materials, the irritant factor of like dumb questions about pyramids and
correct,
and Bigfoot and UFOs.
Yeah, like stop asking.
Yeah. Like there's more important. Let's talk about love and light. Let's talk about 6th density things.
Correct.
That you can learn, or the 3rd density learn. And that to me, I thought was really important, is the whole aspect of making sure that you understand whenever you're not, it's not just a catalyst for a learning lesson. I think that's really important, but it's you collecting wisdom.
Yeah.
Like and he mentioned that too. It's you collecting wisdom in those perceived negative times, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so they didn't impose on it their free will, and then they learned, oh, this is a code for you're asking the wrong questions, or we're kind of off a little bit on that. So it's like you changed the trajectory and you brought geometry. You change the trajectory like 1 degree and then go out 100 miles.
Yeah, totally different area you're in.
Yeah,
totally different shape.
So I what I got from that part was just being attuned, and maybe through meditation or whatever, but just being attuned to changing your life 1 degree. It doesn't have to be this hawk moment.
No.
And to understand that you guys will have to watch the episode. It doesn't have to be this hawk moment, or it doesn't have to be some, you have to go to India and do these things. A 1 degree change over years and years and years makes a huch difference in your life.
Even a 1/4 of a degree change.
Yes. Because they were he said 2/10?
Like 2/10 of a degree?
Yes.
Do you know how small that is?
Yes.
But consider this. If you ask a line of reasoning, right? Or you have a line of reasoning, a line of questioning, it's straight.
Yes.
So the direction which you start already dictates the final end point of that. I just come to a realization in my own mind saying this. It comes to an end point that is already defined.
Yes.
So by refining only the slightest amount, You can go on the most creational, Sagittarius, straight and narrow path on a narrow band contact, asking the most precise questions about the law of one creation, mind, body, spirit complexes, and human evolution. And I think that's what was fundamentally important for the earlier understanding of the show.
But what was cool with Raw is they did not impose on their free will.
Ever.
Raw didn't say, what the fuck are you asking that for?
No.
Or that's a dumb question. Or, hey, we're only going to answer these questions.
Yeah. Never told them what to do, but says, in this line of questioning, this is the energy and the response and output you're going to receive. And so then Don in the group gets a moment to like chew on it, to be like, oh, maybe that is not right for us. Not being told, but it's just that here's the information you'll receive from it. You get to act and choose what you choose to do with it. But remember, through that line of questioning, you weaken the contact itself and have opened up the opportunity for negatively oriented entities to come down and infiltrate that contact.
And that's what you see in a lot of spiritualism. These people that are trying to tell you what to do.
Yes.
You know, and then it's only one cookie cutter way to do something.
Red flag.
And then you're spiritual only if you accomplish these tasks.
Yeah.
Or only if you go to these meetings, or only this building, church, whatever, synagogue, whatever it may be, mosque, doesn't matter.
Yep.
That's, like you said, the red flag. Because now it's imposing on your free will. The ideology is imposing on your free will, or whatever it may be.
And this is what was cool, suggestively from Jim. He didn't tell you to read once, but he never once said, read this material only.
Right.
He gave a breadth of different things, different religions, different things which you can follow in your own way. And you'll find that will all lead in service to the Creator, which is essentially in service to everyone and yourself at the same time.
Well, he even brought up like these things were meant, the church things that she had, like the Bible and candle and stuff.
It was meant for her.
Those were all meant for her, and they had high meaning for her, so they used them. I think the tarot cards are the same thing. I didn't get a chance. Next time we have mono,
I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that too. It's like, why?
Which card were you walking around with? You know what I mean?
Right.
And what was the phrase you guys were saying again? Because I want to understand that.
Yeah, I think it would be important to get into those. Well, I kind of want to, in part two of this, what I want us to kind of get into is a little bit more of when he began to share the teachings for us, individuals. So, you know, I mean, we kind of just did the history and went over everything.
But practicality of it.
Right, the practicality of it. I think that would be of a help to a lot of people.
Well, let's do it on part two.